Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hogsty. Glad to have you back as we ramp up to this week's stunning Christmas Eve matchup against a 3-13 John Fox-led Chicago Bears team. Boy, I'll tell you, nothing would wash out the taste of that nasty Carolina defeat better than beating up on a battered and bruised Bears team, eh? But I gotta ask, is my confidence here misplaced, or are the Bears everything their record shows them to be? Time will tell as it always does, and until then, you've got the Hogsty here to break it down for you. It's coming up next. Don't you go away.
Welcome to the Hogsty with your crew, Adam Tereski, Alex Zeese, Sean Conti, and Steve Thomas. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Hello, friends, lovers, haters, Trumpers, sheeple, basket weavers. What do you all do? I don't know what you all do that listen to this show, but write into us on Twitter. Let me know. Maybe if it's cool, I'll give you a t-shirt. We got a Bears game to break down for you guys here. My name's Sean Conti. I got the whole crew here. Mr. Alex Zeese. What's up, Alex?
Ho, ho, ho.
Sure, man.
That's a very grumpy, Santa impression, man. Damn. Steve, Are you in a better Christmas mood?
Well, see, something weird just happened there because you said everybody write in to see what your job is, and if it's an interesting enough job, we give a t-shirt. And Alex's response was, ho, ho, ho. Yeah. And so I'm wondering exactly what kind of job they need to write into to get a t-shirt.
I like where your head's at.
I am a government worker, so hoeing is a big part of it.
Damn, throwing some shade.
I'm thinking what Sean is saying is a lady of the evening will get a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's not what I was trying to say at all, guys.
For payment of something. I don't know what service they have to perform to get a t-shirt.
You guys destroyed that.
The ladies of the evening who listen to this show, I really want to.
There you go.
I want to hear from them.
It's terrible, guys.
Jamal had the right idea. Send pictures.
We'll approve of that.
Yeah. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, that's the voice of Jamal Forrest.
What's going on?
Jamal, you have been on the show before. We have also spun off a new show here on the Hogsty Podcast Network. It's called All 32. We have already begun work on that, so it's coming up next. So you'll hear much more of Jamal and me there.
Sure.
But Jamal, glad to have you on the Hogsty tonight, man.
Hey, well, I'm glad to be with you guys. It's always fun working with y'all, having these little inside jokes, I guess, what you call them. So I'm having a little bit of fun. I'm ready to get started tonight, per usual.
All right, well, let's do it. We got some.
Well, before you do, though, hold on a minute. I dare say, don't leave the audience hanging, and tell us a little bit about what All 32 actually is.
Well, we'll give you a little taste right now. Okay, so Jamal and I have spun off. It's a brand new show. It's related. It's part of the Hogsty Podcast Network at large. This is a show aptly named All 32 because we are focusing on the NFL at large. So we're not just talking about the Redskins, not just talking about a particular division. We're going to talk about the issues that we don't really have a place to talk about on our flagship program here. So we started a new show to do that. I don't know, Jamal, do you want to add anything to that?
I was actually about to throw out there. You should give them a little sneak peek. I was so happy listening to your Final Four topic. I just wanted you to speak on that a quick little second. You don't have to rap about it, but it was interesting.
So that's actually a great point. So this is the kind of thing that we're going to be talking about on All 32. Jamal and I are going to research certain topics that are going on. They might be timely. They might just be interesting, things that we find really cool. We're going to bring those to the show, to the table when we do the show. One of those topics that we talked about in our first program, which was recorded, soon to be posted, so stay tuned for that, was a study that was recently done between a correlation between a player's off-field arrests and how many penalties they get during the course of a game. Interesting study conducted by the University of Texas at Dallas, which, who else is going to perform a study like that other than a school in Texas? But it's a very interesting data-driven study. It took data from 2000 to 2014, so it's a big sample size. It's really cool. Check out the show. That's the kind of thing, you're going to get on All 32. So
That's a
I
neat.
sure hope that the federal government funded a study like that, because it would certainly be appropriate.
Well, that would fall under crime statistics. So
yeah. Plus, maybe the other thing, Steve, is it arms GMs with the data that they might need to stay away from some of these bad players.
Because the NFL can't afford a study like that if they wanted to commission
Right.
it. God help us. So let's make the university spend public funds on it. Awesome.
Well, I mean,
Well,
the
Steve has
university's
just
got to start
destroyed
spending
our-
money on it anyway, Steve, because they keep on getting all these guys who get arrested every friggin' year.
That's a good point too.
Hey, Chicago.
Yeah,
Bears.
let's
Yes,
do
let's
it.
get
So
back to it.
let's talk about the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are sitting at 3-13, Steve, and I'm sure you have all kinds of data to back up why they have gotten to that point. So you want to hit us with that first, or?
Tons of- What do you want to do? Offense, defense?
Yeah,
what?
let's do. Well, the Chicago Bears defense is better. I think there's more to talk about there. So let's talk about Chicago offense, maybe.
Chicago Bears, Stephen. Okay, Chicago Bears offense. Chicago Bears offense is a little bit of a mystery wrapped up in an enigma to a certain extent. They're 29th in total points. They've scored only 248 points on the year. They've had 3 different quarterbacks. They had the Apostle Jay Cutler. Brian Hoyer is actually their best quarterback. He's on IR. Cutler's on IR, so they're down to Matt Barkley,
Who's only
and
been
I'll
on
get back
with
to
the
Matt
team
Barkley in a
since
minute.
like late September, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll get back to Barkley in a minute. But the bottom line is they're kind of like our offense in a sense, in that they don't score a lot of points, but they put up more yards than they ought to, considering the small number of points they have. And I thought about that. Why is that? Well, and then I noticed that their turnover ratio is -11.
Wow.
They've had 21 turnovers. Yeah, it's a lot. 21 turnovers, 12 interceptions, a whole ton of fumbles. And so I think probably what's happening is a lot of these points are taken off the board because the drives ended with turnovers. So that's number one. Now, this is another team that is a halfway decent rushing team. They don't have a lot of yards, but they're 8th in rushing yards per attempt. And their lead running back is a guy named Howard. This guy named Howard is actually 5th in the NFL in rushing yards per attempt.
Wow.
So, we all know what let's say it all together now. What do the Redskins do to good running backs?
Make them look.
They make
Them
Make
look
them look
like
great.
world beaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't
So,
sure
let's
if we were
start there.
supposed to make sound effects or what we were all supposed to do there.
Well,
This
luckily
is why
we
we
all
need to
said the
rehearse.
same word, great. So
Yeah.
we know
Yeah.
exactly what these guys
Yeah.
look like.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're on the same page with this one.
Yeah, I mean, so anyway, his first name was Jordan Howard. He's a quality running back. Quality running backs tend to do well against us. He's racked up over 1,000 yards already. But they're, the 8th in rushing yards per attempt. They're 14th in passing yards, 15th in total
Yeah.
yards. They just don't score a lot of points.
Yeah,
And I think it's probably due to the turnovers.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I think about when I think about this offense, let's be real, this team is sitting at 3-13. The NFC North has been actually pretty competitive this year. They have no chance of this might be a time that they're going to do some evaluation. They might experiment a bit, do some things outside the playbook perhaps. I think they're still trying to evaluate what they've got. In Barkley, because why not? This is kind of like a 5-game test run here at the end of the season. So I don't know. I think I think we could see some different things. This might be a tough one to game plan for with the team that's kind of already in evaluation mode.
I like to agree with that. But I do think it's tough to see. But at the same time, when you get a feeling where it's tough to see how this game plays out, it also usually doesn't really end well. For the Redskins, but it's just something that we should keep our eye on because I think this offense per se, it really revolves around the one consistent person, which is Jordan Howard. He's been consistent all year. I think he only has, to Steve's point, he has 1,000 yards, with like 200 something carries, which is he's actually at a 5 yards per carry, like average flat. So
Right.
he knows exactly what he's active in the passing game as well. Like he just gets it as a rookie, and I think that's the one thing that moves this offense. And it's with Matt Barkley. Excuse me, with Matt Barkley, he's been competent. I wouldn't say he's been good, great, average, but he just gets it done for them right now. And the one thing that stands out to me is that their last 5 games they have 4 losses, but in every single loss, they've been in every single game. So this is
Absolutely.
this is something
Yeah.
we just can't. The Redskins can't sleep on, and I'd expect nothing
Dude.
less.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I believe 5 losses this season have been less than a touchdown. So they have been competitive, even in the games that they've lost. Most of those close losses have come in the second half of the season. So they're actually trending
Yeah.
upwards here with Barkley playing. He's got
Absolutely.
7 interceptions to like 6 touchdowns or something. But the vibe on Barkley in Chicago is actually, I think, pretty positive. I think people are kind of interested in him.
Well, let's talk about Matt Barkley a little
Yeah,
bit.
let's do
First
it.
of all, it's 4 TDs to 5 interceptions, but Matt
There we
Barkley's
go.
an interesting guy. I've watched him all the way back in high school. He was a very highly rated quarterback out of high school. You know, I believe the number 1 prospect in the country. Went to USC. He started as a freshman at USC. He was supposed to be the next great thing
I
to
remember
follow
that.
in the Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart footsteps, and he
Right.
never really panned out to that extent. But he does have a lot of talent inside him. It just really hasn't blossomed quite
Sure.
yet.
Well, and wasn't he even
his
was he a
numbers aren't
second
that-
round pick or a first round pick? He was highly drafted too.
Yeah, he was highly drafted.
I
I
can
can't
pull
remember
it
if he
up
was
right
a
quick.
first round pick.
Yeah.
Okay, Jamal will figure it out. His numbers aren't that great right now. 59% completion percentage. He's only passed for 1,000 yards, but he hasn't played that much. He's got a 78.1 quarterback rating. But the point is, I know Matt Barkley has talent.
Right.
And if he faces a defense that doesn't pressure him, that has a ton of misreads, that kind of thing, like, the Redskins have done.
Right.
It's possible that he could have a
4th
decent-
round
Well, and
pick,
he
by the
doesn't-
way. Excuse me.
Oh,
Fourth
there you
round
go.
pick.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I thought he was higher
Fourth
than
round
that.
pick.
And see, he does well. I think he was projected to be. I mean, this was a major guy in college football, obviously, but I think a lot of people expected him early to go really early in the draft, and then he did.
Part of the problem at USC, remember, was that was in the height of the Reggie Bush sanctions era too.
Right,
And so
right.
they lost a lot of talent. The team wasn't good, but I'm telling you guys, Matt Barkley is a talented
I think
guy.
so
He
too.
really
And
is.
to that point, I think he's had some problems, particularly in the wide receiver core. I believe they've got who is it? Eddie Royal, who was out for the
Eddie
season.
Royals
He got placed on IR.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
Kevin White,
What's the other-
2nd-year player?
Oh,
He's
White.
on IR.
That's who I was going to say.
I actually
Yeah.
like their tight end, Zach Miller, who last year was playing very solid and was playing solid this year as well. But he's on IR too, so that's just something that you think, not even just for Barkley, but obviously for the other 2 quarterbacks as well. So just very inconsistent at that position.
So does that make Alshon
Yeah,
and Jeffrey their only healthy target then? Really? I mean, is that
Yeah.
right?
No. Their leading receiver is Meredith, who's got 692 yards,
Okay.
3 receptions on the year.
Jeff
So he's the one the go-to guy.
And
What's
Jeffrey's
that?
a great call out because I'll have you guys remember that Alshon Jeffrey got franchise tagged this offseason.
Yeah.
Just like Kirk Cousins did.
Oh, that's right.
And a lot of people are saying, because he missed 4 games this year, I believe, due to a performance-enhancing
Suspension,
drug
yeah.
suspension. So a lot of people are saying in Chicago, like, he's obviously a great guy. In fact, he's ranked pretty damn highly on the NFL receiver rankings. But people are like, he hasn't embraced that franchise tag like, for example, Kirk Cousins did. I read this headline in the Chicago Sun-Times earlier. Alshon Jeffrey has not embraced the franchise tag like Kirk Cousins. So, which is an interesting thing, that people are analyzing it that way, I think. But just an interesting note on Alshon I would throw out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to finish up on Barkley, as an example of what we've been talking about here, last week against the Green Bay Packers, the guy throws for 362 yards.
Oh, they got crushed on defense.
He goes.
They couldn't tackle.
Yeah, well, and he threw threw 3 interceptions.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
So the guy can completely. He was 30 of 43, 362 yards. Sounds like a good game, but the rookie made mistakes.
Yeah.
So if he puts it all together, he could be dangerous. Let's just hope it's not against us.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean-
and let's also remember he's not really a rookie. This is, I think, his 4th season now.
Yeah,
I didn't
he's
mean-
been.
did I
This is
say
his
rookie?
third team.
Yeah, it's his first time.
But
he's
yeah,
really
just
played.
a young
Yeah.
starter in general. So I get what you were saying.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how Kirk
Yeah.
is a 5-year vet, but he's only played 2.
2 full
You know.
seasons as a starter. I understand what you're saying.
Now,
I'll buy that.
yeah, and in terms of the Bears kind of as a whole, these guys just don't score a lot of points. They've only scored over 20 points 5 times all year.
Right.
Colts, Vikings, Titans, 49ers, which are a terrible team, and then the Packers.
Right.
Which has a bad defense.
So this is not a game that's going to be, which has a bad defense, and so this is not a game that, we're going to have to score 35 points and still lose.
Yeah.
This is a game where we have to be
competent right.
and do our thing well, and we really ought to be able to pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about, perhaps we should switch over to defense then, or are we still talking about offense? Because I think they are a team who's been kept in games by their defense, where we've been kept out of them by our defense.
Right. Well, I mean, think about who the coaches are. I mean, this is kind of, John Fox is the anti-Jay Gruden in a lot of ways. He's a defensive-minded, hard-nosed, gridiron-y type head coach. And Gruden comes from that West Coast pass-happy offensive mindset, so...
Absolutely.
This is a matchup of head coaches, and Fox.
These are Fox's 2 worst years as a coach, I believe. Last year and this year.
Wow.
It's been a problem.
At one point, he was kind of like the head coach, which is kind of wild if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he went to a Super Bowl, remember, with the Carolina Panthers, 10 years ago.
And he was with Denver.
Yeah.
See, it's all circumstantial how successful you get, man. It's all about what kind of situation you come into.
It depends on the talent and a lot of things. But listen, the Bears defense. Mm-hmm. This is a pretty good defense.
It is a good defense.
These guys are not pushovers. Yeah, I mean they're darn good against the pass. They're a top 10 team against the pass, and they're a little bit weaker against the run. And that plays that's sort of strength on strength. Because we're a passing team. And their passing defense, 9th in yards per play, 6th in passing yards. So they're a pretty good passing team. But what they're elite at is sacks, 37 sacks on the year. They don't get a lot of interceptions, but they sack the quarterback. And what I notice about that, they don't have like Julius Peppers out there.
Right.
They've got a whole bunch of guys that get sacks. They can put pressure from all over the field.
I think they have They have 4 guys that I really respect. But I think Akeem Hicks, their defensive lineman, Willie Young and Leonard Floyd, their 2 outside linebackers, all have 7 sacks apiece, which is pretty solid per se. And then Pernell McPhee, I think we all know who he is or heard of him. He's not up there with them, but he has 4 sacks as a defensive lineman, which is pretty solid with them guys as well. So it's just they create pressure, and it's not something to take lightly. And I think after what Washington displayed on Monday night against the Panthers, it's something that they need to pay close attention to in practice because and especially Kirk, because I think the thing that gets to him is he just seems to when the pressure was getting to him on Monday night, this hasn't been a season-long issue, but when the pressure was getting to him on Monday night, he just stopped looking down the field. He just stopped trusting his offensive lineman. He just wanted to get the ball out of his hands, and I think he has to play way better than he did Monday night, especially in a position where we're in the 8th seed. I think he really needs to step up. Obviously, the team in general, but I'm just saying in terms of their pass rushers. You just have to expect more out of the quarterback. He has to play with a little bit more confidence and trust in his teammates. So that's just how I feel looking at what they are able to do in the front 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kurt, we pointed out on the Carolina wrap-up game show
yesterday,
the other night that was yesterday. We didn't go deep to Sean Jackson one time against Carolina, and I think that kind of plays into what Jamal said, which is that if there's a lot of pressure on Kirk and it's a halfway decent secondary that confuses him a little bit with the zone scheme.
Oh yeah, that's when he has problems.
The world kind of goes poop. Yeah, that's when things kind of poop out on him a little bit. And that's when he defaults to the checkdowns, defaults to the screens. And if you see that, that's not good Kirk. Right. That's year 1 Kirk, and that's not what we want. So he's got to have confidence. And this team has to play with a lot better attitude, first of all. It's a bigger picture thing. They just look terrible in all phases against Carolina.
Oh, they look lazy.
Kirk Cousins. But in terms of Kirk Cousins, I think Jamal hit it on the head. I mean, he's got to keep his eyes downfield. He's got to not panic. He's got to stick with it, have patience, wait for the routes to develop, and don't get overwhelmed by the pass rush.
Yeah.
And the offensive line obviously has to help him out.
Let me ask you guys a question right quick. In terms of the past few weeks with the Redskins, just in your overall assumption of how the season went, do you guys think that this is a skid in terms of the offensive production? I know they've gotten off to slow starts in like their last 4 or 5 games. Do you guys just off the top of your heads Do you guys feel like this is a skid, or this has been a season long issue with these guys getting off the slow starts?
I think that other teams have kind of figured out what our basic game plan is because we're not a complete team still, like it or not. And I know Steve complains about the lack of a running game, but part of that it is terrible, and part of that is just this team wasn't built that way. We like what Rob Kelly does, but he's a undrafted rookie who he doesn't have the full skill set. Yeah. As good as he looks, he is not a full skill set running back.
Right.
So people have kind of figured us out.
Well, yeah,
and I mean that's played into it.
I agree completely. I would say on both sides of the ball, really. We have some star players on defense, but they're obvious. You just avoid them, and teams have had success. And I think to Steven,
and you do that by just going down the middle every time.
Every goddamn time.
Listen,
they can
I
gash
think
us.
you guys are,
and it's this.
I think you guys are overthinking this. You guys are
really? I think that's pretty
overthinking.
simple.
I thought we just simplified it.
No, listen. No. Listen. Think back to the summertime when we went over the schedule.
Right.
We looked at the schedule and said, oh, God, look at the second half of the season. Look at the middle of the second half of the season. We've played it's not that hard. We played a bunch of lousy teams in the beginning of the year, which we handled for the most part.
Right.
Now we've come up against a bunch of good teams. Granted, some of these teams have not played up to their potential, but we've played Super Bowl contenders. We've played the Packers.
Everybody plays those teams. We just gave Carolina, their 6th win on the season?
Yeah.
It's not the first time we've done that.
But the point is, we played a bunch of good teams in a row with a bunch of good defenses in a row. It's not surprising that performance should suffer a little bit.
Right.
No,
not to mention we've been beaten up more and more each week.
Well,
and I think people underestimate how much that weird schedule we had where it was Green Bay, then turned right around to Dallas.
Sure, but Dallas had a short turnaround too. They haven't had any problem.
Have another short week this week,
by the way. The thing is, I brought that up because in the piece that we're gonna release tomorrow, it was this stat that I just wanted to bring on the air and share with you guys as well. So here's a list of the other 9 teams because the Redskins are a top 10 scoring offense and they rank 10th on the dot. So the other teams in the top 10 are the Atlanta Falcons, New Orleans Saints, San Diego Chargers, Oakland Raiders, Dallas Cowboys, New England Patriots, Green Bay Packers, Indianapolis Colts, and the Buffalo Bills. So,
sure.
In the first half of games, each team is in the top half of the league in points per game in the first half, with Atlanta being number 1 at 17 points per game, and the lowest Buffalo Bills being at 11.9 points per game, which is 15th. The Redskins, these guys, they are 21st in the league at first half points per game, which has been, and I went to a site for that stat, but before I went to that site, I actually went through each game throughout the season and just did the math myself and looked at the first half production. And it has been inconsistent all year. We've had one game where we scored 20 points in the first half of the game, and that I believe.
What game was that?
I believe that was no, it was the Eagles game. We went up 21-14 or 20 to 14 before the half, and finished obviously 27-20. So I guess it was 21-14. My mistake. So in the second half of games we are 4th, but the difference is the other teams that I named that's in the top 10 in scoring offense, they're also still top half of the league, which just tells you. And obviously defense comes into play. They force turnovers. They're able to score off those turnovers, but at the same time, it just tells you how often and how much of a non-issue it is for them to get the ball in the end zone. And these are the things that has been bothering the Redskins season long. And it's just been a issue that I think people. I think they ignore it, or maybe they may not know it, that how bad it really is. But even the number 3 in total offense is just, I think it's a little skewed. I really do.
It's not the whole story.
Not as potent. It's not as potent as
it's not.
We thought it was, and I think that in week 15 or week 16, I'm just starting to come to grips that as great as this offense is moving the ball, I don't think you can consider it an elite offense, and it's for multiple reasons, but I think it has a lot to do with not only the the production on the field, but a lot to do with what Steve said and I think what Alex said. They have us figured out, and we are not making
Right.
any changes. And this is crunch time. We need to make that happen, and it just hasn't happened yet.
Well, I would say there's just two things I would point out to kind of counter your stats there. One, for some reason, we love getting the ball in the second half, and every time we've won a coin toss this year, we've deferred to the second half.
Oh, of course.
Now that
I would always do that. I would always do that.
I mean, I think if you have a good defense, you absolutely should. I don't know why we're doing it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Stubborn.
You know,
That's fair.
That's a little like I think anybody who plays Madden knows that you always want to defer to the second half if you have a good defense.
Exactly.
But that does have an impact on how much you're going to score typically because you're going to get probably one less drive. You're letting the other team dictate the first half a little bit that way. So that might play into that a little. Also, I would say the good news is you said we were number 4 in the league in the second half. I always want to do better in the second half than the first.
But if the deficit is, I mean, I just think that and sorry,
Yeah,
Steve,
why play with the deficit every time?
Yeah, I'm about to say you
No,
put
I don't
yourself in
like
a hole
it, but
often. It's like these slow starts.
The good news is
it's
that
hard for you to
tells me
overcome
we're
it.
adjusting.
Yeah, look, I mean, Jamal's right. This is not an elite offense, okay? We put up a lot of yards, but elite offense to me is only one definition. You score a lot of points. The San Diego Chargers in the early 80s were an elite offense.
Sure.
The St. Louis Rams, the greatest show on turf, that's an elite offense. The Tom Brady, Randy Moss year
2007.
Patriots,
Oh, yeah.
an elite offense. The Chris Carter, Randall Cunningham Vikings.
Randy Moss.
Right.
Not a Randall Cunningham. Randy Moss, Chris Carter. No, it wasn't
Yeah, it
Randall
must be
Cunningham.
Warren
was
Moon, I
quarterback,
think. I'm
but
not sure.
but that Warren Moon. Thank you. That was who. But that is an elite offense. This is a team. We are a team that can move the ball.
We're a
easily,
productive
but
offense.
we just we get stuck in the mud in the red zone.
Yeah.
And far be it from us to figure it out. The coaches haven't figured it out. We're not going to figure it out either. But if you don't score points like that, we're a good offense. But we're just not an offense that's going to beat people.
Yeah.
up,
No.
in terms of scoring a ton of points. I like your point, Jamal, and I don't think I agree with Alex. I think I agree with you, Jamal, because you need to start strong. And granted, yes, we may have one less drive in the first half because of it, but the fact is we're kicking field goals.
Oh, no, and I agree that
we're
what
kicking
we're
field
seeing in the
goals.
first half isn't good. I was just that's a little stat that they were talking about the other day, how the Skins have gotten the ball in the second half in, I think, like all but 2 games.
Well, somebody asked Jay
Yeah.
about it this week, and one of the media guys did.
Well, I think just like this stat, like what Jamal said, which was like, just because we're number 3 in total offense doesn't necessarily mean we're elite. It doesn't tell the full story. I think the Bears defense also has a little bit of that. 9th in total D. They get a lot of sacks, but honestly, we get a lot of sacks too. We're not far behind them in the sack rankings.
No,
what they do well, it's got to be more than that. What they do well is they don't give up a lot of yards on teams. In fact, only about 25 yards a game on average separate them from the number 1 defense in terms of total yards per game.
Right.
It's not very big margin, and they don't let teams score. I mean, that's it. That's all you need on a defense right there. If you don't give up a lot of yards and you don't give up a lot of points, really nothing else matters, and that is what that's the truth about their defense.
I think as much as people love to look at numbers, it always comes down to score.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what they are bad against is the run. So I would say, if we're talking about prognosis for the Redskins offense, fucking run Fat Kelly again. It's time for him to wake up after rushing, 9 times for 8 yards last week? It's time for him to wake up.
Well, unfortunately, it's not all on Rob Kelly. We have to have a coach who's willing to call more than 11 run plays.
No, it was bad.
I
agree.
And I'm getting really frustrated with this, with this thing. Jay just won't stick to it. And by the way, they don't give up a lot of points, but there have been some teams that have scored a lot of points on them.
Sure.
The Packers put up 30, the Buccaneers put up 36, the Colts put up 29, the hated Dallas Cowboys put up 31. So it is possible. They've done a number on some other teams, for sure. But it is possible to score points on the Bears.
Sure, absolutely.
It's not like this. We're not we're not facing the Ravens the Cardinals defense. This is a good defense, but it's not elite.
Right.
Yeah,
we've
sure.
been facing a lot of good defenses lately too. Let's also keep that in mind.
Yeah.
No, totally fair.
Yeah.
But you got to beat the good defenses. You've
Oh,
got
yeah,
to
I
do
I'd,
that.
I'd agree with everything that you guys are saying. I think Steve is. It's crazy because me and Steve were thinking a lot alike tonight. But I just think
That is
absolutely,
crazy.
But it's just annoying, and I'm getting really frustrated. With the offensive play callers. How nervous or how I think they. So I was thinking when I was writing this as well. I think that these guys, Sean McVay and Jay Gruden, I think they think a lot like Kirk Cousins, how he plays on the field when he gets, when he turns in the bag curve, which is check down Charlie. I can't even believe I just said that, but
Put it on a T-shirt, Alex.
It's true. I'm sorry. Like when he loses confidence after bad play and he doesn't trust his offensive line, like what I was saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So when he becomes turning into the check downs and throwing the drags and all that type of stuff, I just think that these guys, when they see that the offensive line is not doing well, or maybe that the run game is not working right then and there, they just completely abandon it. Or maybe oftentimes when, for example, I think in my opinion, Carolina had them figured out from the jump defensively. And they just could not they could not overcome it. And I think that they couldn't find counters. And that's just the thing that was getting on my nerves because you don't just continue to do one thing and say, since this thing is not working, obviously we just can't do it. No, like find ways around it. You could have ran on Carolina last Monday night. And I think when it comes to the Bears, you're just gonna have to do that. Regardless of if it's working or not. They rank low in the NFL in terms of stopping a run. So you just have to stick with it. Mm-hmm. I think that's what we do best when we get victories. We're a very balanced team.
Yeah, I think the issue with the run is we basically have two run plays that we know how to do, and it's either a sweep with Thomas or it's up the gut with Kelly. We don't.
It's not nearly that simple. I mean, it's really not. I mean, they've run some zone schemes, this year. They do the A gap thing. There's
a lack of originality that we see.
We don't call enough run plays. We do not call enough run plays, and this goes all the way back to sort of Jay Gruden's football philosophy. He's an arena ball guy. He's in a West Coast offense. It's just really not in his DNA. I don't think the playbook has a lack of running plays. We're not calling those running plays. We just don't call them. And listen, we're pretty good. We've got Trent Williams.
Yeah,
we got two Pro Bowlers.
Brandon Scherf,
like your bottom half of the league in rush attempts.
And Scherf is an athletic guy.
No, they're both.
He can pull.
They both are maulers who should be dominating in the run game.
But it's just not. I think you hit it exactly on the head, Jamal. Actually, This team dumps the run in the middle of games at the very first sign of trouble. If it doesn't work immediately right off the bat, he is just done with it, and we don't ever go back to.
No, yeah, that's definitely the case.
That's kind of what happened.
Yeah,
but you got to stick with it.
Just these couple of stats that they're 26th in the NFL in rush attempts, and over the course of the season, their run to pass ratio is 37 to 63. So that just shows you how much they really want to run the ball. When in terms of the other divisional leaders outside of Detroit, each divisional leader in the NFL has a run to pass ratio of at least 40% rushing the ball. So it just shows you.
There you go.
But at the same time, I don't think you're ever going to see anybody go into the uber run mode that we used to see back in the 90s.
Absolutely.
No, but
Rex Ryan does it in Buffalo.
Yeah, Rex Ryan. That's true. Rex Ryan does love his but he uses
Dallas
the read option
does
with Taylor.
Yeah, Dallas I think is the closest.
Yeah, Dallas does it.
What's Dallas' ratio
right
now?
They're the closest. I think they're at like 49 to 51 run to pass. I looked that up earlier. I don't want to say that's the official, but it's definitely. I'm for sure it's definitely around 50-50. It really is. That's how close it is.
Yeah.
So there, Alex.
Well, I was talking like the old Joe Gibbs run it 60% of the time thing.
Even those days are over, man. That's
in
sailed.
1991, Gibbs didn't do that in 91. That was really the early year Gibbs.
But also, Gibbs is a genius because he would always change his offense every year to his players.
Eyes forward, fellas. Forget Joe
That's what you
Gibbs.
do.
It's over. Should we do game predictions for what's coming up this weekend? Do we feel confident enough to that? Have we broken it down sufficiently?
Sure.
Let's go ahead and knock it out.
So.
Man. Get this
You
over
guys
with.
don't seem excited,
All right.
but we'll do it. You want to go,
All right.
Steve? You seem confident.
All
You want to
right.
go?
Me? Okay, I'll go.
I'm going to
first,
rip
I
off
guess.
Steve. Let's do this.
I think the Listen, I think the Redskins hopefully ought to be embarrassed about their performance last week.
They are shameless.
I think that they know they ought to be ashamed, and they know that we have to win these next two games. I don't think the weather is going to be a huge factor.
No,
in
it's
Chicago.
not looking
It's not
bad
going to be
for
deathly
Chicago
cold
right now.
Yeah, it's not going to be deathly cold like it was last week. It is sort of a strength on strength kind of deal here, but I think the Redskins are going to play fairly well, and I think they're going to be saved by the fact that the Bears just don't score a lot of points. They really just don't. It's very rare when they get over 20 points. So I think we're going to win this game. I think we're going into Chicago to get the W. It's going to be something like, we don't score enough touchdowns, of course. So we're going to get something like 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals, I think. And so that is, let's call it 20. I'm going to call it 23-14.
23-14. All right.
Redskins.
We don't miss a
Nice.
field goal or an extra point.
No. Everybody stay off the
I know.
duster. He's having a bad time, but we shouldn't let good kickers go.
Fair enough. I'll go next. I think it could go either way. This is a game that's tough to predict because I could see us losing it and I could see us winning it for obvious reasons in both directions. This is a tough defense. It's not going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game for us. I do think, this is crazy. I've called a win like the last 4 times. I'm an idiot, but I'm going to do it again. I think we can win this game. It's going to be a low-scoring affair. I think we're going to get a couple touchdowns, maybe 1 in the first half, maybe 2 more in the second. I think we're going to take this one by... And the Bears have been very competitive recently, even though they've been losing. I think we're going to take this one by a field goal. Let's call it... No, you know what? I'm going to change my prediction. Let's call it 17-14 Redskins. We're going to get 2 touchdowns and a field goal.
Redskins.
Sean the Optimist, 5 games.
I
in a
know.
row.
Call me crazy.
And because I think I've been overly optimistic, I'm going to go contrarian just because I feel like somebody needs to predict a loss here.
Cover your bases. Cover our bases, I should say.
Cover our bases, exactly. I think the wheels are coming off on this defense royally at this point. We are the team that teams are getting right against on offense. I think that the offensive side of the ball, they will struggle at first like they've been, and they're just going to lose confidence. We saw it in Kirk last week. Skins lose this one 28-20.
Okay. See, I could see that
Alex
happening
predicts
so
the
clearly in
season.
my mind's eye. It's totally accurate.
4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's a lot for Chicago. But I wouldn't put it past the Redskins
Yeah, it
defense.
It's not a lot for our
Don't
defense.
put it past Joe Barry.
Put it past
Don't you
him.
dare put that
Oh,
past Joe
and
Barry.
I wouldn't put it past Dante Whitner either. So let's.
Yeah.
But
What? I thought everything gets past him.
that's true.
Hey-o. Just kidding.
Oh my goodness, I'm pretty sure he's still looking at the receiver on the opposite side of the field while Ted Ginn's running past him. So pretty sure. For me, oh my goodness, I got us winning by a point, 21-20. I think that this is a
Wow.
moment where the Redskins are, in my opinion, have been figured out offensively and schematically. They have a good, obviously, according to a lot of people who watch a lot of film, they have a really good offense schematically, but just as the course of the season went along, it just tells me that they've just gotten off to these slow starts, and a lot of things have become predictable in terms of personnel that comes in on the field. If they're doing this one thing, I feel like the defenses know if it's a run or pass. Like they take Chris Thompson in the game. What are the odds that they're passing the ball? It's well over 50 percentage wise.
Right.
It's just a lot of things that puts this offense in a hole in terms of personnel alone. Just in my eyes, and I'm not no expert, but that's just what I see and that's how I feel. And they don't really stick to the ground game. But I think that of all the weeks for them to wake up, with 2 weeks of the season left and they're in the 8th seed, I think that they wake up. It's not going to be a pretty game, but I think that they get by against Chicago, and 21-20 is probably the best way I could see it.
There we go. See, we all called close wins, and Alex was the one guy to cover our ass with the loss prediction.
Alex is the contrarian. Imagine
No,
that.
I'm literally
shocked.
doing it because every time we all predict wins, it seems like we lose.
Yeah, no, I actually like where his head's at with that, Steve. Don't hate him.
Yeah.
All right, well, you heard it
I'm
here
the
first,
superstitious
folks.
one, apparently.
Alex,
Hey,
I
man,
think
someone's
you're
got to
doing
be.
the right thing, man. Don't worry about it.
There you go. You got our support. Well, ladies and gentlemen at home, glad to have you here with this episode. God, we'll see what happens against the Bears on Christmas Eve. Gosh, this will be nice. So have nice holidays, everybody. Can't believe we almost forgot to say that.
I want to
Happy
be happy
holidays to
Sunday when I
everybody.
eat, man. I don't want to be soaking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no one does. So anyways, keep checking back with us.
And thank you for the NFL for not scheduling a bunch of games on Christmas. We do appreciate
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Solemn salute.
I mean, Christmas Eve is also great, but yes, much better than Christmas.
There you go. All right, well, keep checking back with us on our website, thehogstie.com, for new content getting published practically daily these days. So if you're missing that, you're a big dunce. And also, we've launched a new show again, All 32. It's me and Jamal Forrest, who's been on the show tonight. So check that out. It's going to get posted soon. Really cool show. We hope to see you there. And until next time, this has been the Hogstie.
Peace.
Take care.
Later.
God, Bears.